All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about the first major battle in the Civil War and the bloodiest one-day battle in U.S. military history. Okay, that's what today's lesson is going to be about. So, the objective today, we're going to analyze the Battle of Antietam. That is the bloodiest battle. Okay, we're not going to look at the importance of capturing the Mississippi. I had to edit this lesson, so I had to get rid of that part. But we're going to create an argument on whether Lincoln was justified in firing General McClellan. Okay, you're going to find out what he did and how he tries to justify what he did and why Lincoln was upset with him. Okay, so let's go ahead into your warm up. All right, so here's a picture. All right, now there's two questions to this warm up. The first one is basically asking you to use your detective skills. What I want you to do is look at this picture, right? Really look at it, analyze it, and things like that. Now, what you're going to do is tell me, is this picture taken in a town, on the outskirts of a town, uh, near a farm, in the middle of nowhere? Where is this picture taken, and how do you know that? So if you say, oh, it's in the middle of nowhere, how do you know that? Explain, justify it, use things in this picture to back up your claim. Okay, so if you say, oh, it's in the middle of town, explain, why do you say that? Okay, so if you just put it's on the outskirts and leave it, that's it, you're only going to get 1 point for this response, because you're not justifying, you're not responding to the second part, which is, why do you believe that? The most important part. Okay. The second question is basically an educated guess. The question is, these soldiers you see here dead, right? Do you think that they're guys, do you think they're on the winning side of this battle or the losing side? Now, I know some students are like, in class, are like, well, they're on the losing side because they're dead. Okay, remember, they're fighting for either the North or the South. Okay, during this battle, one side won. So, which one do you think they were on? The winning side or the losing side? And why do you say that? Now, remember, just because people win on one side doesn't mean that everyone survives. People die on the winning side as well during war. Same thing with on the losing side. Sometimes on the losing side, they don't lose all their men. Not everyone dies. Okay, so just keep that in mind, all right? Because that seems to be a problem that I've noticed in class. You know, when it came to that question, people thought, well, they're dead, so they're probably on the losing side. Not everyone who loses in the battle dies. And again, the people who win in the battle, not everyone survives. People die in war, So tell me, what do you think? Were these on the winning side or the losing side? And explain, all right? So pause the video, write your response, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So the first major battle to happen in Civil War was the Battle of First Bull Run. Okay. This was the first major one. Now, why was this significant? Well, because the thing is, it was where this battle took place. It took place on this guy named Willer McLean's property. Okay. I want you to keep that name in the back of your head. Okay, because by the time the Civil War ends, he will play a role again. Okay, so the battle happened on his property. Now, who was he? This guy was a member of the Virginia militia, right? For years, he was in the militia. But when the time the Civil War started, he was already like way too old. He could not march. He wanted to fight. He wanted to be out there in battle and things like that. But the people are like, no, dude, you're way too old. You can't march. You can't do what we do, the young guys. So they're like, we appreciate it, but you can't. So he says, well, how about this? I let you guys use my home as a headquarters for the Confederates. They're like, you know what? We'll take you up on that. You know. So that they do. They they camp out on his property, you know, and here's the thing. The Confederate leader of this group was General Beauregard. Now you might remember that name because of what happened on Battle of Fort Sumter. He was the commanding officer there too. Okay. The Union leader, his name was Brigadier General McDowell. Okay. Now, McDowell and his men, the Union, they were coming up and they saw the Confederates in their tents, just relaxing, kicking back. And they're like, well, hey, they don't even know we're here. So let's set up the cannons. So that's what McDowell had his men do. They set up the cannons and they were just getting everything ready to fight. Now, inside McLean's home, there are a bunch of Confederate soldiers eating breakfast, having eggs, eating pancakes, you know, drinking their coffee, and then all of a sudden, boom, a cannonball just goes from one side of the house to the other, and these guys are like, "What the heck was that?" And then they hear the bugle call. And that's when they realize, oh, dang, we're in a battle now. So they storm out of the house and they come out there and they see the Union soldiers attacking. Okay. So for the Union, they had 35,000 men. For the Confederates, they had 20,000 men. Now, in this battle, only 480 men died for the Union and only 390 died for the Confederates. Now, for the Union, 1,000 men of their men were wounded, shot in the arm, leg, things like that. Same thing for the Confederates, except their number was 1,600 men. Now, here is something it's not really used anymore in battle because they're pretty precise on who the men are and stuff like that, and what happens to them. But in this time, they counted people who were missing. Now, what does that mean, missing? Well, some of these guys could have been captured as POWs, okay, prisoners of war. But also, what happened a lot was a lot of these guys ran away from the battle, ran away from the war. Okay. Nowadays, if you move from here to, let's say, Ohio, and you were trying to get a job, you were trying to do this and that, you would have to get your fingerprint. They would ask you for your social security, your name, things like that. Everything is processed now. Even digital facial recognition can point you out saying you're so and so from this place, you were born at this time, la 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 la. But back then, they didn't have that stuff. So a person could easily live in one state and say, my name is George Cluck Cluck, and then move to another couple states away and say, my name is Patrick Sanchez. Sure. There's no identification. There's no ID card, no birth certificate. None of that stuff was around back then. So somebody could easily just have a new identity, and that's what some of these guys did. They thought they were going to go to war. They thought it was going to be like how their great granddads did during the Revolutionary War, how their fathers did during the fights with the Native Americans and some of that. And then they get there in the war, and there's bullets flying by their heads, cannonballs blowing up, their best friends on the side of them dying, and some of them run away. They're scared. So they'll just like go and move and change their name, you know. So for the Union, 1,200 men go missing. As for the Confederates, only 24. So overall, in this battle, the Confederates win. Okay. And someone asked me during class, well, how did these guys win? They had less soldiers. If you look at that top map up there, you see where it says Henry's Hill? That's it's not a cliche. It is true. If you have the higher ground, you have an advantage in the battle, especially if you have cannons up there. Because cannons, angled at a certain degree, with additional height, can shoot something farther than something that's on a straight level playing field. That height advantage gives them really is an advantage, and they can use that. So, having the high ground, it does play a factor, it does play a role. Okay. Now, in this battle, there were two famous people, right? For the Confederates, for the South, there was Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson. Okay. He's the guy in the gray picture, the white and grayish picture. He was a former professor at the Virginia Military Institute. This guy taught history, military history. He taught his students, how the Greeks and Romans fought, and up until Napoleon, which was about 30 years before this time. He taught them this is how you fight. This is how you use the terrain. During this type of weather, this is the best way to fight. If you have rocky hills, mountains, whatever, this is the best way to fight. So he knew how to fight. He knew tactics that worked best throughout history. Okay. Now, how did he get the nickname Stonewall? Well, during one battle, um, cannonballs are flying around near him. Boom, boom, boom. His men and other company men, they're hiding behind rocks and trees and ducking, stuff like that, trying to stay low from the bullets and the cannonballs. Jackson just stands there looking at the whole field, analyzing the field, where guys are moving, what's the best way to attack them, stuff like that. And he's just standing there. And the cannonballs are just, feet away from him, just dirt's hit, the cannonball hits the ground, dirt's flying in his face, and he's just there, just looking. Bullets going by him, and he's just standing there still. And this was where General Bernard B tells his men, look at Jackson standing there like a stone wall. And that's why he got his nickname. The other guy you see in the colored picture, that is the Union, guys. His name is William T. Sherman. Now, at the time of the first Bull Run, he was not a general, okay? But later on, when he becomes a general, he becomes known for this strategy called scorched earth tactic, in which he would go to a town, get all the fresh water, food, whatever's needed, and then burn the rest. Burn the farms, burn the homes, burn everything down. Now, why would he do that? So when the soldiers that aren't his would come through those towns and they're looking for shelter, they're looking for food, they're looking for water, there's none there. There's nothing for them. So it's basically like choking them out in a sense. You want fresh water, you have to go out in the forest and find some. You want food, you have to go hunt. The fields, burn them. If we can't have them, they can't have it either. Okay, it's very effective, but at the same time, it's kind of wasteful, and it's kind of I know it's a war, but it's destroying people's homes and property and stuff like that. But still, I get it. It's war, you know. So, September 17th, 1862, Antietam Creek, which is near Sharpsburg, Maryland. The Union general in charge, his name was McClellan, right? The Confederate general was Robert E. Lee. Now, again, Robert E. Lee is the best soldier the United States had at that time. Okay. Both sides wanted him on their side, but he joined the Confederates only because he loved his state of Virginia and they were Confederate. That's the only reason he joined them. He didn't care. He didn't really favor slavery, but he did love his state, and his state was a Confederate, so he joined them. Now, Antietam is still the deadliest one-day battle in American military history. A lot of people think, oh, D-Day has to be number one. No, D-Day was not. Okay. Now, what happened? So Robert E. Lee gives the special order number 191. This picture you see right here, that is the actual letter that was given out. Okay. Basically, what he was doing is he was telling his generals, we're going to split in two. Half of the army is going to go this way, the other half is going to go this way. Now, when this side or this side, whichever one first, finds the Union army, they're going to attack them. And then this other side, while these guys are fighting them straight up, these guys are going to come around, flank them from behind, and attack them. Basically, do like a sucker punch. So not only these guys think, hey, we got them, we're fighting them face to face, then all of a sudden here comes the other half of him coming from the back where they're not going to realize it, and then they got him. Okay. Now what happens is all the generals are given these orders, this paper you see right here. And one general guy gets the paper, he folds it up, and he makes it into like a little pouch. And he puts 3 cigars in there. Okay. Then when that group breaks their camp and they're starting to march again, he forgets about the cigars in the letter. So the Union sends a scout team out to the area. So these guys are walking around like, did they leave any weapons? Did they leave anything behind? And they find these cigars. So they're like, hey, the scout, Private Mitchell and Sergeant Boss, they're like, hey, we found these cigars. Here, you have one, I have one. And they start lighting them up. Then one of them starts looking at the paper going, hey, you know what? There's some writing on this. So they start opening up, thinking it might be like a love letter or something. And they start reading it, and they're like, oh, this is important. This is from General Lee. So they go to their general, McClellan, and tell him, General, you need to read this. So McClellan takes the paper and he starts reading it, and he's like, oh, dang. Lee has purposely split his army in two. This is the best time to beat him because his army together would be very hard. But if they're both separate, if they're separate from one another, he can attack one, and then when that one's done, look for the other one and attack them. You know, that was the plan. So that's what he was trying to do. Fight one and then fight the other half, and that would stop Lee's plan that, oh, we can take them on, and then these guys are going to come around from the back and attack. That would destroy his plan. Now, Lee is no fool. He basically tells his generals, guys, take out your orders, make sure you're following them. Read through it again. All the generals take out their orders, are checking them out, like, okay, yeah, we're doing this job, okay. But that general who used his orders as a little pouch for his cigars, he's looking for them. He's like, ah, dang it. Now, instead of saying like, oh yeah, I'm following the orders, I have him right here. Instead of lying, he basically tells his person, one of his people, to tell Lee, hey, I lost my orders. So the guy tells Lee, hey, my general lost his orders. And Lee's like, okay, you know what? We need to get together with that other group. We need to reunite the army again, just in case the Union finds those papers. And when they find the other group, they are already in a fight with the Union. That side is already in a battle with the Union. Now, strategically speaking, Lee knows what he's supposed to do is retreat. Even though his men are being attacked by the Union, he knows they're basically done. And if he sends his half to fight, there's a chance they might get wiped out. Okay? That's like trying to box with one arm, cut off. You're not going to be able to fight that well with only one arm. You need both arms up and things like that. So he's already know one arm's gone. We can't really fight a person with two arms if we only have one. It's going to be very difficult. We're not going to win. He knows he's supposed to retreat, but he doesn't. He says, all right, we're going to attack them, but we're not going to go toe to toe. We're going to attack them so our men can retreat, and then we'll regroup at Antietam. So that's what he does. He attacks, the men retreat, they all meet up again at Antietam. Now here's the thing. Confederates are on the west side of the creek, and the Union's on the east side of the creek. In between them, there's 30 acres of corn. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen a cornfield or been through a cornfield, but you cannot see 5 feet in front of you. That corn stalk is very thick. They grow really close together. And on top of that, it's very humid. It's itchy, So these soldiers are going through the corn, trying to go slow, see if they can see the other side, And eventually, the Union sees the Confederates before the Confederates see the Union, and they start aiming and shooting. So the Union attacks first, and each side feels, oh, if we have more soldiers on our side, we can overpower the other side. It's one thing if one side decides to do that, but when both sides decide to do that at the same time, it's just a clash, and that's exactly what happens. In 8 hours, and this is just in the cornfield, in 8 hours of fighting in the cornfield, 15,000 men die. That's almost 2,000 men an hour die in the cornfields. Okay, now here's the thing. Near the center of that battlefield, there's this little farmland. It's a little kind of like canal in a sense, where a farmer can go from one side to the other side of the farm without going through the corn, things like that. If they need to get animals from one side to the other of the farm, there's the path. Need to get some water, things like that, whatever. They can use that little path. Okay. The soldiers, as you can see from this picture, they're right near each other. As you can see from the picture with those guys, the one that kind of looked like it was a fog. The other side of the ditch, it's no more than 8 feet away. So to be able to sit there and shoot your gun, it's almost kind of useless. Yeah, you can stand on one side up on top and shoot your gun, but all someone has to do is just get down and then stab you with their bayonet that's attached to their gun, and you're dead. And that's what happened in this creek. They start stabbing each other, choking each other, shooting each other. Two guys would hold someone down, and another person would come and stab them in the gut. People took out their Bowie knives, started slicing and stabbing and things like that. In the ditch area alone, 8,100 men die. So we have 15,000 in the field, in the farm, in the corn, and then we got another 8,000 in the ditch. So that's 23,000 men just there. That lane, that creek used to be known as the Sunken Road. But after this battle, it became known as Bloody Lane. Here's the thing. We're still not done with how many people died on this battle. So nighttime comes, and there are thousands of men out in the field, out in Bloody Lane, just crying for help, groaning in pain, holding their guts in and things like that. It's horrible. Remember, they don't have flashlights, things like that. They basically have torches and lanterns. So they're trying to find their men. Okay. And this is the time when both sides allow the other side to get their dead, get their wounded. And that's what each side's doing. They're going through trying to find, okay, this guy's dead. This guy's dead. Oh, this guy survived. He's alive. Let's get him. Hurry. Get this guy. Let's go. Okay. Both sides combined have 23,000 men wounded. Now, on top of that, there's another 3,650 men who died because of their injuries. They waited so long to get these guys help that these guys basically died from their wounds. Okay. So that's like another 3,000. So that's like 27,000 men dead. And on top of that, another 23,000 wounded in one day. Now, the next morning, McClellan sees Robert E. Lee and his men getting on boats and leaving. And he allows him. He lets Lee get on the boats and leave. He doesn't stop him at all. He doesn't say, hey, we're going to get you. No, just watches him go. Bye, type of thing. Why did McClellan do this? Because to him, excuse me, because to him, he accomplished his mission. His mission was to push Lee's troops out of Maryland and prevent them from winning a battle on Union soil. That was his mission. Don't let them win the battle. Keep them away from Maryland, the state of Maryland, and don't let them claim any land of ours. So McClellan's like, well, I did my job. I completed my mission. When Lincoln hears about this, he is furious. All the books I have read, which are a considerable amount, because I'm a huge fan of Lincoln. Every time it comes to this part, they just mention how upset he was, uncharacteristically angry, vengeful, rageful. So many different words to express how angry he was at McClellan. He's like, why didn't you capture him? You had a chance to get him. Why? McClellan's like, sir, my mission was to push them from Maryland territory and prevent them from getting any territory. I did my job. And Lincoln's like, no, your mission, just like any other general in any type of war, is to win the war. And if you were to capture Lee, we could have stopped this war. It could have been ended already. If not, at least, it could end a lot sooner if we had captured him. Lee is the top general for the other side. You capture that person, they're going to be leaderless. They're not going to know what to do. Lee's that important. You should have got him. Sir, I did my job. I completed my mission. I don't understand why you're so upset. Lincoln's just furious now. He's getting more angry. He's like, you could have done this. This was part of your job. Part of your job is to win the war, and part of winning the war is capturing Lee, and you didn't do it. McClellan's just still, I completed my mission, sir. I don't know what more you want from me. And Lincoln's just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. You're fired. You are no longer the commanding general of the Union Army. McClellan's like, you can't fire me. Yes, he can. The president is the commander in chief of the armed forces. He is the top person in the military. They all have to answer to him. So yes, Lincoln can fire any general, just like right now, and the president right now, Biden, can fire any general he wants. That's the power of the president. And that's what Lincoln says. I'm the president. I can fire you if I want to. McClellan's like, well, sir, fine. But good luck trying to replace me. Now, he is in a sense kind of right. It's going to take somebody very special to take over for him and do a better job than McClellan could have done. Okay. Now, to the historians, the Battle of Antietam, it's a stalemate. Neither side really won, neither side really lost. But to the Union, that's a victory. We won it. That was our battle. We kicked the Confederates out of our land. Okay. So here's my question to you. Do you think McClellan did the right thing by letting Robert E. Lee go? His mission was to stop the Confederates from taking the territory and stuff like that. But also at the same time, his objective as the top general is to end the war, which he could have done by capturing Lee, but that wasn't his mission. So what do you think? Where do you fall on that? Do you think he did the right thing or not? Okay. And don't forget to back it up. So with that being said, once you answer this question, you're done with this lesson. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. You guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later, okay?